Okay.
All right, thank you. All the July meeting of the Rochester Land Bank Corporation Board to order. The first order of business is to designate a secretary for today's meeting in Lachey Harris's absence. We have a motion to appoint as McBreed as our secretary for our meeting today. Do we have a second?
No, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Sport forum?
Number of steps.
Just making sure.
Thank you, Secretary Reed.
You're welcome.
I also want to acknowledge the newest member of the Rochester Land Bank Corporation Board. Treasurer, thank you very much, Sharika, for joining us. We're excited to have you. Yeah. You didn't have a choice. Oh, wow. I had mine at 7 this morning. Ships passing in the night. Next order of business is approval of the minutes from our June 16th meeting. Are there any comments, corrections, or concerns? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? We're saying that one, everybody said aye. Motion carries. All right, well then, we'll move on.
This one for the treasurer and disbursements report from June 14th through our meeting until today's actual first. First starting with disbursements, we have a total of $153,148.45. Breakdown of 2730 even for property management services and more post property associations. $155 to EMS systems for security monitoring. We have a private engagement. Comprising the 155. And we have 74,400 even to the variable home improvements for rehabilitation at 131 York Street and stabilization at 4 Brooklyn Street. We have the third and fourth quarter payroll adjustment entered, City of Rochester, $60,649.16. We have $14,740 to Rochester Cornerstone Group pre-development activities. That was 2 invoices. And then finally, $474.29. That was land bank staff reimbursement for site visit supplies. That was actually 3 invoices. And then as far as the treasurer report, one revenue source for this was New York State, $44,735. I do have some backup for that. See that, but it was one incoming $44,735, and then restated again expenses that I removed previously, the 153, 140.
Very much. Any questions, Molly? Thanks again.
That was that. Strategic plan. Strategic plans.
Okay.
On to first action item of the day, resolution 10, entering into an agreement with the HTFC for Land Bank Initiative grant.
So this is the result of the open line application. We were awarded a total of $2 million. It will be in the form of an extension of our existing grant for the activities that are not rehabilitation. So there's an extension, and increase of $550,000. This will extend through November 15th, 2026. And then there will be an additional award, which is a new award, if it's state ID member for $1,450,000, to accommodate the stabilization and rehabilitation activity. So it's two contracts with this one award. And again, they go through November 16th of 2026. So I believe we talked about what the application is for. We will be participating in the tax foreclosure auction with approximately 300,000 of that. We will be doing some environmental investigation and potential title investigation on some vacant land that we have asked the city to put on hold for the land bank in anticipation of a future construction for affordable housing, affordable homeownership. And then there's money to touch all of the properties in our inventory with under stabilization or rehabilitation. So our Rehabilitate the Dream program, where we are currently offering properties for sale to owner occupants with the support of home headquarters as the mortgage chief and some additional subsidies. But the subsidy from the state is going in at the front end before we make those offers so that they're stabilized. And there are also some doubles that we will be rehabilitating in full and offering to income qualified homeowners in the city of Rochester with the aim of creating wealth among Rochester homeowners. So that is our what the contract is for. So you have questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the site, is it evaluation or is actual cleanup for those sites?
No, we don't know if it needs cleanup. There is a site near off of Upper Falls that's got some large parcels where both what we're trying to do now, attached and detached single family homes could be constructed in a very close proximity, as is required by the block by block program of the state. So we want to make sure that there aren't any surprises. So we're going to start with obviously just phase one.
Just phase one. Okay.
Just the amount that we were expecting.
This is as much as you could get.
Okay, so we tapped it.
Yes.
Excellent.
This is the one that we said as a board, let's go for the whole.
Yeah.
Go bigger.
They originally had a little bit less, yes. Then encouraged by the board, so we, right. Changed the application, changed the narrative. Yeah, nice, so
Well done.
very good suggestion.
Nice win.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions on the resolution? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve resolution number 10. Ooh, we have a second?
I heard
said it, yeah.
Subtle thing.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye. Motion carries. On to resolution number 11, which is amending our procurement policy.
Let's kick this one off. There's some discussion and review. We decided that it'd be best to review a couple of things in our procurement policy. So pass the baton to Eric, if you could just summarize most of it.
Sure. So in the course of doing our bidding for Rehabilitate the Dream, we found that our procurement policy was very, very outdated. So when the city or a government entity in New York State bids on projects, there are a couple different thresholds, or rather puts out bids for projects and commodities, things like that, as many of you know. GML, the General Municipal Law, Section 103, requires that we go out to formal sealed bid when a commodity purchase is going to be greater than $20,000. A public works construction project is going to exceed $35,000. Or in the event we're procuring professional services, we set our own policy and so for this example, the city of Rochester goes up to RFP, as we all know, when we reach a $20,000 threshold. And there's a whole policy associated with that. So really all we've done here is reset so that the thresholds more accurately reflected New York State law. So we've set commodities at 20,000, construction at 35,000, and what did we do we did the same thing, the $20,000 for professional services, right? Yeah. So professional services are 20,000, which also that reflects the city's current threshold. So open any questions
Essentially, we're trying to align ourselves.
with what everybody else is doing, essentially, yeah. And what's lawful for, of course, the land bank has to follow, as a local authority, has to follow the same thresholds as the city or lower thresholds in the city, so we're just getting in alignment.
Right, and the procurement policy had been in place since the initial formation of the land bank, so part of a period had to be. This was the appropriate time.
Makes sense. Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Thoughts? Hearing none. We have a motion to approve resolution number 11.
No second. Like, Alan, thanks for
Loud nod. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carries. On to our discussion items for the day. First up, LBI funding opportunities.
Yeah.
Plural.
So, we have put in an application for, LBI operations funding, which will be like the phase 1 funding. It is, reimbursement for the remitted, so staffing, property maintenance, insurance, those types of things. For this, it is a single year with the possibility for 1 year, renewal. The max that we could request was $200,000. Right now, the last 2 years, we received back 50,000, for that, we received 100,000. There wasn't that breakdown as there had been in the past based on expenditures from the land bank's budget, but they will ask records our budget this period. So we made that request for 200,000 to continue to pay for the additional position that we were able to add to the land bank, and then also it's a little bit higher, and so we were able to include some of the things that have been recommended initially in the draft framework that the strategic planning consultants have provided. So they recommended support for certain legal activities and asking for funding for that. So that would fall under this grant. And also for some additional reimbursement, which I think we would have some additional planning support people. So you could, there's only $20,000. So reimbursing the city makes more sense than trying to speak out for that, off of that. So I'll be talking about that the next section. But there were also funding opportunities for projects. So we just received, funding for, at the tail end of, open round. And many other land banks also put in their application with tail end of the open round. But there are some other land banks who had been asking for smaller, grants throughout that project, and so they had come to the end of their project funds. They're calling this land bank property, property services, the property services. It is again an open round. We can apply at any point, provided spend enough of our existing award. So that project, property services, RFA includes some things that the open round and the phase 2 did not include. There are some opportunities for a multifamily vacant rehabilitation support. So if there is a project that has, to get support for commercials, someplace else, and support for, it would give support for the residential portion. A lot of the land banks have downtown type, they're smaller municipalities, so like downtown type activities where if they can get the commercial portion fixed up, then they can afford it. Someone is doing the commercial portion, but to own it, you can then tap the land bank for the residential portion of the structure. There's also the Vegas rental program, which there's a webinar for this Thursday, I think, which may be the same kind of activity. They are contemplating, I believe, I don't know if this will be, it did not come out as part of this request, but there is, there was a pilot for the cross modular builds. So they're contemplating a program where they would be supporting land bank in finding neighborhoods in which to the cross structures. And that is like it's a single story manufactured structure that it's in. I don't really understand the difference, but it's somewhat different from a manufactured home. I think it's less smaller in size, or
It's not a manufactured home, but it's not a modular.
Yeah.
It's a cross modular. Exactly. We all got our research.
I don't know that, I know that the city has just recently put out, the manufactured RFP. I don't know what type of, since I don't work in real estate, I don't know what type of responses we have received, but I do know that the city has, as the city has done its research. There is some controversy among the land banks about whether it makes sense for land banks to support cross, if we're looking for opportunities, because it is a new form of, structure, and it's not necessarily always the safest for some reasons. That's their first investment. So anyway,
Did they give some reason why the
Why?
land bank doesn't support that kind
it's
of?
not that, so the state is very excited about it.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
some, it's just among the members of in discussion. There's concern about retaining value. There's concern about getting it, getting community members and local
Mhm.
governments on board with putting them in the communities because of the value and the, tax.
There's a perception as well.
There's a perception.
Yeah.
Because there also could be a struggle with getting it, it may not be mortgageable at this point.
Mm.
New housing types, banks are conservative by nature.
Mm.
So they're their thing, and if there's no other product like that,
Yeah.
it's difficult to find a comparable that's gonna show that it has marketability long term, and that it'll praise, that it'll have, value 10 years from now. So until we get typically you get a couple that are private financed. And then maybe they turn around and sell,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden you start to build a database of sales, and you can track what did it cost to build, what did it sell for 4 years later. So it takes a little time to build up those, that kind of database to make.
Yeah,
Lendable
mobile assets.
possible.
Yeah.
I can say when I was a mortgage underwriter, on the consumer side, two places that I was an underwriter. We did not underwrite manufactured homes or modular, or if we did, at the other place that I worked, the requirements were very stringent and a lot of declines. And what you said about the comps, that was an issue as well.
Right, you know, there's neighborhood character, and it's not only retention of value for that property, it's retention of value for the neighborhood, you know, so all those things are not gonna be the right solution for all places.
There does seem to be, I mean, more appetite for manufactured homes. There's much more variety in what can happen. There's some land banks like Oswego that have, you know, done some manufactured homes that are story and just, you know, they look very similar surrounding. You know, there's a lot of variety in the product. So it's not, you know, it's not that manufactured housing would be out of the question, but the cross line is a really specific, you know, in the way that the state wants to do it, they want ranches and see. So that's not always an urban.
And there's a mortgage process for a manufactured home. The mortgage process for a modular home, for someone to stick them. Probably not one in place yet. For this hybrid kind of approach, so. And anytime you do something new, someone's gotta be the first one to jump in the pool.
Yeah.
See where it goes.
But currently, there's money for them, and people try to get some.
Why not?
If it's a source of state.
And the maximum amount of that grant is.
Because I was not looking because I'm so much.
Based on the amount of things that are potentially eligible, I imagine it's.
Probably back to it. Since you can go back to it, you know. And I imagine if you needed more for a particular project, it's essentially one more office, so we're very fortunate at voting. But this funding is the capital funding, which is not as flexible as the land bank fund. So the property services funding comes from the capital budget, required to get other building, you know, activities from state.
Well, I'm intrigued by the vacant multifamily that you're talking about. Yes, we've got, there's B-Ray
Mhm.
and in PhD in the development division, we're offering Smucker program, the small mixed use and commercial renovation program, which is a low interest loan program. I know, I love it.
If it's Smuckers, it has to be good.
That's probably the first person to truly get it.
Yes.
That's a low interest loan program targeting those sort of properties that are, you know, smaller, commercial on the first floor, residential above, traditional commercial corridor sort of buildings. Uptake has been a little slow, but it's, you know, we got a couple of projects that will. People always prefer grants to loans, but just to see, did we get this, how we might be able to partner with the city? What's the interest rate? Doesn't officially between 1 and 3. Oh, that didn't happen. So it's very fair.
I can only say that, I can come around you all, if I start talking about it, I wonder.
But you won't forget it.
No, you won't.
Well, that's great, thank you. And an update on strategic planning.
We had our site visit, we had a meeting since then, and one of them included, they haven't got to drafting yet, but they laid out the structure. What sort of recommendations they'll be making. There's some recommendations, related to. Let's see, certainly ways in which the city can additionally support the land bank and acquisitions. Potentially cities at the properties that the city already has control of. allowing the land bank to take, title or control of those properties. Without, you know, the upfront payment of, you know, an appraised value. And really kind of possibly creating a more geographic focus, so it wouldn't be all of the properties across the city, but if we designate a particular area where we think that the land bank can really have an impact on that general area of the vacant land in that area, which is often owned primarily by the city, as well as, you know, vacant structures, which of late are less frequently owned by the city, but are still much more likely from city ownership than the land banks require. And focusing that geographically, and that's how many land banks do it, even across the state. There, you know, land bank district where properties that come into public ownership in that area go to the land bank and go in and tax the land and figure out, you know, what does the community think is the best way to move forward? What kind of funding can we have? How can we create synergy? So that is part of what they're thinking. That is one of the reasons why they need some support from our urban planners. We do have we have the mayor's office of planning. So there's some very talented people there that hopeful, you know, entice them with some reimbursement from the state that they'll be able to dedicate some significant time, because it is not a way that passed, and it's very different to how we have looked at the land. It's been a tool of the city to accomplish the city's goals, and this makes it more, I think, community focused, as well as obviously continuing to put forward the objectives of the city in terms of housing, and particularly home ownership, but also being responsive to what a particular community is looking for, and what would make that more attractive to homeowners and residents and households within that area. How the land bank can be more responsive. They also looked at some of our capacity challenges, as we have our staff is also the Division of Real Estate staff. And so while we have board members who are working, also work for the city, there's some things that could potentially, with support from state funding, be outsourced, right? So they could be handled outside of the resources of the city, and so we get more by the land bank. So kind of being strategic about how we deploy those operating funds that are available at the state level. And really just, there is some, the idea of potentially expanding the number of members of the board for many reasons. It is it's, you know, people have rich, so a larger board would allow for us to not sweat every necessarily getting 4 people here out of the 7, and potentially having some more expertise from outside the community, and particularly if we have a geographic focus, having some experts or people who have a particular stake in that particular geographic area. So that might be, if you know, we have to change legislation, but if there are more physio members who are specifically related to that area from more city officials, but also some external partners might have a place on the board as well. So those are some of the recommendations. They are planning to have a report ready to present either September 29th or 30th, person to present. They are behind, but we, you know, certainly bring that forward. I did let them know that our annual meeting is in September, so they're aware of that, but that should be that would be slightly earlier in the month, and you know, this will be separate from, and will of course invite their stakeholders to work. no, you'll see a draft before then.
That sounds great, you know, one of the things about targeting, to be really honest with you all, I was disappointed in our meeting with them. It felt like it was somewhat of a foregone conclusion, that we're gonna go to a weak market neighborhood. And it really wasn't fleshing out, pros and cons of different strategies. It was really clear to me when I took a look at the dots, you know, in terms of, you know, city holdings, that transitional edge, you know, had merit. And when you think about, you know, how you reposition neighborhoods, and recognizing the poverty concentration grows at the rate of one transitional neighborhood, right? That what it takes to push that edge over is different than what it's going to take to revitalize out. And so I'm not making an argument for either or. I was disappointed that there wasn't more conversation of that. Because I think that both opportunities in different ways in the deeper hit neighborhoods, it needs to be cross sector and have that tipping point capability. In transitional neighborhoods, it's true, cross sector is important, but it plays differently. So I think it's been decided, but I just would welcome your feedback to be given to the consultants. If they could include something about transitional neighborhoods, recognizing it's not going to be the recommendation for a neighborhood target, but things that we could consider as you know, outside of that, which would you know, be other aspects of our work that would give consideration to how we might approach that in transitional neighborhoods.
I will say this, you mentioned that in the meeting that they took that into consideration. What they're proposing is potentially finding a quadrant and then having our planning office decide where in that quadrant, what number of blocks are going to be the appropriate one for the land bank to intervene. So that could include actually, you know, perhaps there's two neighborhoods that's more challenged, a neighborhood that's more transitional.
Yeah, I think exploring that at least would make sense. Again, you know, you have to follow process, but I think that would be helpful. I didn't feel as though the consultants really resonated with that input, but maybe I'm wrong.
They may not, but you know, as consultants, I think they probably did take that into account, but they're not suggesting a particular neighborhood. Right? So I think.
So targeting a late September presentation, you mentioned they would have something, a draft. Advance. Do we have a rough idea of when that might be?
Probably by the end of August. They are, you know, we're still trying to provide them with. I think they've done all of their interviews and meetings, but they're still looking for, they've got a lot of data that they're something out of building blocks. How built out that is. I think they have asked to speak to some visual. They spoke to, here's something I didn't mention, they spoke to DEQ, because they think that since it is a 5-year time horizon, taking the approach of looking at brownfields as potential future development opportunity, because the state does have some special provisions for land banks in brownfields where they have certain protections that you can, you know, that could extend beyond the municipality. So there are brownfields that are a lot of communities are brownfields off their tax rolls and just don't even include it. We, on the other hand, are building up, you know, years upon years of tax delinquency, which could complicate things. But if there's an approach where the land bank could partner with the state and the city to kind of get those into private hands without that big tax prior tax burden. Those are things too that they're also recommending. Yeah.
The other things, thinking about it, I'm not sure, maybe it's already in there. If it's not, if the consultants would consider it, what kinds of measurements what should we be, considering as we're considering targeting? So I think, you know, we all would agree that just having numbers of things necessarily doesn't mean impact. And so what would be those kinds of measurements that the numbers of things would roll up to affect, which would help us to understand where to target, scale, or effectiveness, you know, those kinds of things. That would drive the targeting, focus of, what they do. You know, and you can have, you know, impact at a smaller level, you can have it at a bigger level, but you know, what would be those measurements that we would use in any event? That at the end of it, we would say it's successful, that would be just beyond it.
Did you have any conversations with Elizabeth Murphy?
They did. They spoke to her, she was part of our selection committee, and then they had a discussion, and I just wanted to put that in place of theirs, so we're trying to wait until we get some concrete information on our housing bills.
Yeah, that's gonna be,
Do you have any idea?
I'm looking up right now to see if there's been any updates, so let me. I'll get back to you.
Back out to her. But, thank you.
Right, any other thoughts, comments on the strategic plan? Anything else for the good of the board?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, I'll give you all a very brief update, sure you can read it something. 1090 Culver Road,
oh, great.
not sure if you're familiar with that property.
No.
No, so the remainder of the, I'll summarize quickly, this will be rehashed for the rest of the folks. So 1090 Culver Road was privately owned property. Set for demolition. Some neighborhood stakeholders and at least one or maybe more member of council indicated kind of stepped in and did not want to know it turned out. It was on a site that had strip plaza on the same site as this house. Land bank.
Culver and Garden.
Yes. Yeah.
I know Culver.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right.
Land bank was directed to step in. Take on the property, the house was being donated, was offered as a donation. On the condition that the city waive all the code violations, fines and all those kind of things. And they would just donate it to the city, instead they donated it to the land bank. And the land bank was directed to go through pre-development activities, kind of get it set up, kind of try to get it ready for an RFP. In the course of doing that, a lot of unknowns were discovered, or a lot of unknowns became knowns.
Waiting for it.
Yeah, yeah, been vacant for 10+ years, all kinds of problems, structural, animals, lots of issues. We sent consultants in, sent in inspectors, and the house was kind of as we suspected, really rough shape. So an engineering company went and looked up, and they found the house to be not safe for entry. And the city engineering was asked to give us an idea of what this is going to cost us. We knew it was going to be a lot, but I won't get into all the details. But some of the house is falling in on itself. Some has already started falling in on
Yeah,
itself.
structurally compromised.
Absolutely, multiple locations. So they came up with 3 different options. Stabilize all 3 parts of the structure. There's an original cobblestone structure, there's a brick addition, and then there's a little side. To just stabilize that, $645,000. That's just the
Is
stabilize.
the L hard? Okay, I know. Yes.
Yep. you got it. Option 2 is to stabilize the original cobblestone structure, demolish that brick other side of the addition. That's a little under 500,000 to demolish those. Yep. Part of that would also include them repairing the walls. Actually demolish that structure. There's walls and doorways in there, so you'd have to seal them. So that included just kind of finishing up the envelope of Option 3 was the long-term renovation of the entire structure. If nothing comes down, everything gets fixed. This is including the basement, which is crumbling. Is somewhere between 3 million and 4.2 million dollars. There would be a factor of about 2.2 because of the historic restoration, so we could be looking at a significant, potentially 6 to 8 or more million dollars. To bring this building.
That sounds like more than these resolutions.
Significantly more. Yes, significantly.
These were for multiple structures, correct? Not just
Yeah.
one.
For one.
And there's also the issue of use of the building, so if you
Yeah,
demolish
the
that.
original, because I know what it looks like in my head, because now I know exactly what was that? Was that a home? It was a home.
I think it may have originally been built as a home, but the most recent C of O, which we would have to renovate it to the most recent C of O and update that now. Was a commercial office use, and then an apartment on the first floor, and then a separate apartment on the second floor. It would have to be done that way. Because there is building code issue, because it is so close to the building, because we had to subdivide the property out. He's only donating the house, not the commercial structure. So we subdivided the house from the commercial structure, but they're so close that we cannot meet the state building code for separation of businesses, separation of buildings. In order to avoid having to go to the state and ask for waivers from the section of the code, it would have to be done to the last CFO, which is like describe. Any change kicks it to, is it a variance or some type of administrative relief?
Yeah, it'd be a variance, so it would be a board variance, and you'd have to go and present your case and
Yeah, to New York State.
to New York State, which I don't think that's.
Yeah, and the prospects would not be good to get a favorable outcome there, so we want to avoid that. So that was how we were proceeding. It may not get to that point, because we haven't. So all this was presented to the mayor's office. We have not, and the update is no news. So still waiting for direction from the mayor's office. I suspect we don't have 6 million, 3 million, 2 million, whatever that number is. We want to have it on mortgage. So the price is substantially more than what the building.
But what do you think then will be the outcome?
I think it's gonna end up being perfect.
What if, instead, that was made a pocket park and, the cobblestone became a ruin wall? So think about, you guys have been in, Philadelphia, think about, Benjamin Franklin's house, where that stood, how they made that into an interesting artistic, that, the house itself isn't fully there, but, parts of it and the foundation. So it might not be able to preserve the whole thing, but the cobblestone exterior can be preserved in a way that, benefits the neighborhood, and that becomes a park like, or it becomes a park for the neighborhood. To do different things. So back when I was doing Healthy Blocks, we actually did for Halloween, we got lights, and we got the police department, horses, and the whole 9 yards. And we did a Halloween party on Halloween night there, and the theme was "Come dressed as a zombie." And the neighborhood came out and had blast. I mean, so they could do things, the neighborhood could do things around it, and it would preserve that it's the last cobblestone. And I realize that there's cost considerations for that too, but just as a thought.
Yeah, it's a very creative way to remove the parts of the improvements that are probably obviously gonna be. They're not now, they will be health and safety issues, but we could remove that, still retain some of the historic nature of the improvements. And then resolve the issue and then be able to have a different use for the property. Maybe that's a good suggestion.
They can do, food truck rodeos, whatever, and the community can then activate it in a different way.
Yeah, collect the fund. But anyway, so we'll wait for the recommendation from the mayor's office, if it comes down that to move forward with demolition, that we can maybe go in that direction. Say here's an alternate idea. Still demolishes the structure, but maybe not all. Keep some of it up as a way to memorialize it. So there's your update on yeah, and I cut out about 50% of it.
Thank you, Paul. Anything else for the good of the board? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion, I saw a second down there. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. We stand adjourned. All right.
Okay. I forgot.
Oh.
But we have, there's a signature, form.